This was a game, I think, coming in with the long laundry list of contributors that the Saints had out. You might expect an easy Bengals win, but Mo, the Saints, to their credit, they played them close, and the Bengals had their work cut out for them.
Yeah, they did. They dug a hole again, the Bengals did. It's a pattern that just keeps repeating itself. But, you know, I said to you before we started, I kept thinking, at some point Joe Burrow is going to put this team on his back. And he sort of did. He and Jamar Chase did. But, yeah, I mean, look, nothing comes easy for this team. I think if you're expecting anything to come easy for this team in the short term, you're fooling yourself. They badly needed that win. And there were times this afternoon where it felt like the game and the season maybe were teetering on the brink. Unfortunately, Joe and Jamar did their thing.
As someone who writes a running game story that has to put a lead on a running game story at the end of Bengals games, they are just a tough sell to me,
Keeping
man.
you on your toes.
Oh, boy, I had written that it was, you know, finally the offense had a great day and the defense had its worst day. And then I wrote, well, it's the opposite of that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Burrow to Chase magic. That'll be an easy lead, because that's what it was. I think to Mo's point, I mean, when you had to have a play, your two best players made that play.
Now, the Bengals defense, which has been so good for this entire year, they've helped them get to this point and held up the team a lot of times. I'm looking at the stats right now, almost 400 yards of offense given up, a lot of running yards. I mean, Mo, what was the difference? Was it just the Saints, the game plan, or is this going to be something we need to look out for?
Well, you look out for it, given they play Cleveland in a couple of weeks.
And they like to run the ball.
They love to run the ball. Who knows if DJ Reader's going to come back in time for that game. But, I mean, that to me was the story of the game, if not for Joe and Jamar. It was how the Saints, when you knew they were going to run it, ran it often with ease. And that's got to be rectified soon.
Yeah, I mean, the jet sweep was a great gimmicky play. It got them a big chunk, but they also got big chunks between the tackles. That's what's most disheartening. Look, you give up a play like that, you go, okay, you out-schemed us. You made a great play. The kid could really run. He could fly. A couple of Taysom Hill runs, but the stuff in between the tackles, and I think some of that was DJ Reader. Now we don't know about Logan Wilson either because of his shoulder. That was disheartening, but this defense in the second half, it felt awful. It felt like the Saints, I think the Saints still have the ball. That's what it feels like. You know, they only gave up 2 field goals. They've not given up a second half touchdown this year. So as bad as the defense played when they had to have it, had to have a 3-and-out to get it back, had to make the end of the game stop, they did it.
32 minutes the Saints had the ball as compared to the Bengals just over 27. You brought up Logan Wilson, Skinny. If he's not able to go, with the schedule getting tougher now down the stretch the next couple of weeks, because the Falcons like to run the ball and they have success running the ball as well, is this linebacker group in trouble?
Over the next 2 of the next 3 weeks, Carolina's terrible. Obviously, to Mo's point, Cleveland in between the Atlanta game and this is really good against the run. I will say, Akeem Davis-Gaither's made a great jump this year as a third linebacker. I think Jermaine Pratt, you know, he's just a solid player, but he's not Logan Wilson. I think Logan Wilson is literally a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker, something you don't speak with Bengals in a long time, Pro Bowl and linebacker. He has been that good. For whatever period of time he's out, you're going to miss him. And now, it's one of those things where you might miss a guy in the front level because you are in DJ Reader. Now in the next level in Logan Wilson, that's a tough ask.
I think you might be dealing with absences of the 2 most important defensive players, and that's not to short sell anybody.
That's a good point.
And the secondary, and the thing I think you also worry about with Logan is he's developing an injury history.
Yeah.
And for a guy who...
And it was weird, too, because it didn't look like there was anything to that injury, right? I mean, he's kind of shoot tackle.
For a guy who should be such a foundational piece, that history is starting to gather.
Now, speaking of history, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have a little bit of history down in Louisiana, and we saw it on display. Probably one of the best games we've seen out of Joe this year. He goes at 300 yards. The best game we've seen out of Jamar, over 170 yards, 3 touchdowns. Is this the spark that's going to ignite it, and are they back to normal? Do you have that confidence?
I think in a couple of ways. I think for Joe Burrow, I think you saw it all day. It's something I actually wrote about this week. I think others did too. How are you going to attack these soft zone defenses? And I thought Joe, for the most part, took everything that they gave him over the middle to the areas on the outside, a couple of slants. But Jamar Chase made 2 great plays, not just the touchdown. There was a 3rd down catch he made on the drive, I believe, before, where he had a guy draped on his back, 2 yards short of the first down, and he struggles to get there and gets there. I don't know if this is the downfield connection that we're hoping for, but I thought it was a big step for both, and obviously for Chase to break a tackle and go for a touchdown.
Joe looked uneven, and the offense as a whole looked disjointed over the first 5 games. Today, Joe didn't look uneven, and that looked like a well-put-together, solid game plan. I had no qualms with it. You know, you talk about taking what the defense gave them. Don't discount Tyler Boyd either, because we talked about that a lot this week. Boyd, this is a guy who, against these sort of defenses, ought to be able to thrive. And he had 6 catches today. But, I mean, to me, more than anything, the 3rd down play that Joe makes on the drive before they score a touchdown, where he was dead to rights. If they bring him to the ground, I don't want to think about what the outcome of that
Yeah,
game
no.
is. That was a great individual play, and then he and Jamar followed it up after the shank punt. But I mean, yeah, they finally got high-end quarterback play, and the result speaks for itself.
Now, play calling has been really what everyone's talking about. I mean, you wouldn't know that Zach Taylor took the Bengals to the Super Bowl. How some Bengals fans are talking about him these days. But the big plays finally came out. 3 plays over 20 yards, 2 of them to Chase, 1 of them to Tyler Boyd. Did you feel like Zach was more in control of this offense? Because it certainly felt like they were scheming guys open. Something was different, it seemed.
I think the play calling thing can at times be a little bit much.
Yes,
you
thank
know.
you.
Now, look, I don't love shovel passes. I don't like trick plays near the goal line, that sort of stuff. To me, that's situational. The play calling, none of us knows what goes into calling an NFL play. I thought the offense just looked put together, well executed, and that to me is the bigger thing. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase make the play calling look good when they do their thing. And over the last 4 or 5 games, they hadn't. Today, they did.
Yeah, but if you look at the last 6.5 quarters, I think they've done a really good job. I mean, the last 2.5 quarters against Baltimore, they moved the ball at will. Now, we can, again, the play calling down by the goal line still has us all scratching their heads. But I think some of this was on Joe Burrow, too, and I think you saw today that he realized, all right, you want to give me 8 yards, I'm taking the 8 yards. You want to give me 7 yards here, you want to give me the slant, I'm going to take it. And then when you got the occasional single coverage looks, I'm going to my man number 1, and he's going to make a play. And I think that's, the more they do that, the more they attack like that, the more they run the ball effectively, you'll see teams start to get out of this soft zone stuff.
All right. Now, the only good thing about the Bengals struggling at times this season is the entire AFC North is doing that. It's a hot and cold division. We thought it was going to be full of killers.
It's a hot mess.
I don't know what it is at this point. So, Skinny, a win like this on the road, the way they had to do it, how big was this going forward?
Huge. I mean, look, you're in a stretch now through probably the first 2 games after the bye, which are at Pittsburgh and at Tennessee. You probably had to go 4-2 at a minimum, maybe even 5-1 to just feel good about it. Well, you stole one today that you almost lost. So this was huge. Plus, Baltimore loses. Cleveland, I think we can start to shove them to the side. God love Pittsburgh for what they did today. It's going to be one of their 4 wins this year. They're not going to win many. But today was just huge in so many ways. 2-4 looks so much uglier than 3-3, even though it really is just a 1-game difference.
You know, Dan Horde talked about it on the radio pregame show. They probably have to go 8-4 the rest of the way to make the postseason to get to 10 wins. Well, 8-3 would have been tough to talk
indeed.
about.
Especially against that back end.
I look at it now. I mean, I still trust Joe Burrow more than I do Baltimore to hang on to a lead, Lamar Jackson's skill guys, Jacoby Brissett, or whatever the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing, which, by the way, I'm cool with them winning because we talked about it on the air this week. I was looking at their schedule. I don't want Pittsburgh to have a top 2 pick. And so today, maybe they staved off that possibility just a little bit. But I think they've played 4 of 6 on the road. The schedule over the coming weeks is a little softer. There's a bye week in the middle. I feel pretty good about where this team is right now, assuming that what I saw from Joe Burrow today
Continues.
Continues.
Yeah.
A much happier roundtable on this Sunday. Amazing what a win will do on the road.